What is on top of the deck? What is on top of the deck? Oh, it's Lightning Helix! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Welcome to Hunt the Week.
Hello everyone and welcome into the show. Welcome in each and every one of you Nazguls out there. I know there's 9 of you listening. I know you love the show. And there's all these rates, and boy, are those cards good, right? Especially in multiples. Hi, welcome to the show. This is Hunt the Week. It's a weekly Magic the Gathering podcast about the Sealed Arena Gauntlet League. This is Lord of the Rings, Week 3. I am your host with the most, your Don John DeMarco, your Goku or go home. I am a 3-time Mega Drafter, a 2-time League winner, and a 1-time podcast host. Well, one time I was a family Don. Let's go with that instead. One time I led a league family. And I welcome you to the show. Welcome in, everybody. It feels weird. I feel like I haven't done one of these in a while. Last week we had Cast Down. Super fun, cool show. I hope everyone enjoyed that. If you liked it, if you enjoyed that show, say something nice to Chris R. Chris R. put a lot of work into that show. And if you liked it, you thought it was fun, say something to him, because I get good feedback all the time. He doesn't usually make podcasts and get good feedback. So tell him what you thought of it, and while you're at it, go back and listen to that episode. Oh, that was a fun, cool one, man. We did an alternate reality podcast. We did the live episode a couple weeks ago. Really shooting for the stars in this Lord of the Rings set with the podcasts. Really trying to mix it up and do some different things. I hope you're enjoying it. I know that I am, and I promise I will not talk about Neo League at all anymore, at least for this week. Because this week, it is Lord of the Rings week, and we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. We got weird stipulations we got to play by, play through, and everything's changing all the time. So let's go ahead and start the great journey.
The ring is evil. It will corrupt and destroy anyone who wears it. What will you do with the One Ring, Frodo?
As I record, it is about 4:10 on Thursday. And this is your top 8. Raphael F. Prudent, 11-3. Michael B. Monkey Mage, 11-4. Went 5-0 this week. Are they the only 5-0? Only 5-0 of the week, Monkey Mage. Congratulations. Philip B. Plipster, and he's just come on strong, right? Philip came in, Rookie of the League, came in, dominated Neo League, and now still up there again in the top 8. Do we have a new Jordan? A new JM? Jordan and Philip got to fight it out. Yeah, and the next we got Dan A. Beatdown Bringer, 10-4. Reed P. Big effing Snake, 10-4. Jordan M. JM Tron, 10-5. Sean S. P. Talran, 9-3. Damian S. Butt Crack Magic, 9-5. And we're in week 3. And this was a weird week. I don't know how your games went. I don't know what your strategy was, but this was mine. I took my best color, which was white, and I paired it with every color I could. So I started with white-black, which is what my main deck has been. Lost. Then I switched to red-white. Was a pretty sweet aggro deck. Got a win. Then I played red-black, because you got to play the Mardu colors, right? You got to play the Mardu colors in this set. So I did my only non-white deck of the week, red-black, lost. Okay, fine. Let's go to white-blue. I've seen that work out for people, and blue's not as bad as people think it is. I'm coming around on blue. I lost. Then we switched to white-green, and boy, I mean, this thing, it gains a bunch of life. All these aggro, aggressive decks, they're not going to be able to keep up with it. I lost. I'm at 1-4 this week. My deck is just not very good. My pool, I still have not opened a, Claim the Precious. How do I not have that yet? I'm playing black. I don't have the common removal spell. Are you kidding me? I'm 6-9. My goal is to make it to Brawl Week, and I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to try everything I can. I had to play all 5 games last week so I could underplay this upcoming week, which is going to be the odds even, so that I maybe, hopefully, have a chance to make it to Brawl Week. And let's talk about next week with odds and evens, because this has been a hotly contested. What do you do? Some people say you can't play odds. Odds are a trap. You're not going to be able to double spell as much on evens, and you're just going to be missing all of the strong 2 and 4 drops. I understand what you're saying, and I hear you. Some people say you got to play odds. All the removal is in like 1, 3, and 5, pretty much. Not all of it, but a lot of the removal is odd. So you've kind of got this interesting choice. Do you play a deck that maybe has not all your great, creatures and uncommons and commons, but you have all the removal so you can deal with the good creatures? Or do you play the deck that's full of all the great cards, all of these great 2-drops and March of the Black Gate and all these fantastic 4-drops, Bill the Pony? But then maybe your removal suite is lacking, and it's maybe you're using Morgul Knife Wounds to try and kill some things, and then it's not a great strategy, but it's what you got because you're on evens. Can you even build a 2-color deck? It's hard with either choice, whether you go odds or even, to build a 2-color deck. Maybe it's better to play 3 colors, but there's not a ton of fixing. Especially in even, because then you don't get that mana rock at 3 mana. You got to go odd for that. But if you go even, you get a lot of the land cyclers, which definitely does help with the fixing. I don't know. I think that next week is a very skill testing week. I think everybody's deck is going to be not very great. And I don't know what I'm doing yet. I've built a couple decks. I built what I think is a really sweet red-white odds deck and a pretty great black-white even deck. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just hope to make it to Brawl Week. Will I, won't I? I won't. But I'm going to try. And I hope you are trying your best and doing everything you can to do as well as you can with Raphael F., who has just been the big bad pretty much this whole league, always in the number 1 spot. Can he continue it? Can he make it to the top 8? It's been a fun thing to watch and follow. But I did not get Raphael as a guest this week. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Instead, I talked to someone else. And I'm going to bring them on the show right now as we make the journey to Mordor.
I'm going to Mordor alone. Of course you are. And I'm coming with you.
That's right. This week, I talked to the guy. The guy with the questions. The guy with the riddles. And the guy with the 5-color deck in Neo. Steve T. Strout. I talked to Steve this week. I have never had Steve on the show before, and that was a oversight on my part that I will graciously ask for forgiveness. But I like Steve. Steve's, not only is he funny and nice, Steve is insanely smart, right? Steve is the stats guy. Steve is the guy who, hey, Steve, what are my chances to make top 8? Oh, let me run the numbers, guys. Boom, 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 boom. Steve does all that stuff. Steve is a numbers guy. He is a smart guy. And he had a great run in Neo, and he's having a pretty good run so far in Lord of the Rings. I wanted to talk to him all about it and try and trick him up with some magic riddles given to us by the league. So let's go ahead and listen to my interview with Steve now. All right, everyone, join me as we go to Mordor this week with none other than Steve T, aka Strout. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Like we were just talking, so long time coming. Big time stats, Steve. Got to get you on the show. So I want to know, Steve, as I always want to know with everyone when I begin my show, when did you start playing Magic?
So I started, I think it was like very tail end of 2007, beginning of 2008. I was in college, and a friend of mine showed me his Magic cards, asked if I wanted to learn how to play. He taught me. I went out to Target, I think, and bought a pre-constructed Slivers deck from Time Spiral.
Oh, cool.
Had a lot of fun with that, and just have been playing since.
Are you mainly a limited guy? Is limited kind of your thing?
I play a little bit of everything. Right now, I'm mostly playing on Arena. I'm kind of a frugal guy, so I played a bit in college and then just sort of held on to those cards and played for a while. And then when Arena came out and it's like you can earn cards for free, that's when I, started playing quite a bit. And I play a bit of limited, bit of commander, or brawl, I guess, since it's on arena these days. But
Oh, who's your
yeah.
favorite brawl commander?
Um, so I use historic brawl to get my daily wins, and for
Nice.
that I want to win quick. So I use Galia of the Endless Dance, I think it's
Okay.
called. The satyr commander that has haste, and if you attack with three creatures, you discard one, draw two.
Yep.
And so I have that. About half the deck is one drops, and a good number of those are creatures with haste or combat tricks. So it just runs things over.
I am so glad you brought that up because I think of you as an aggro guy and as an aggro player. Is that a wrong description of your play style, or have I been paying attention?
Um, I think that's more or less accurate. I play just about anything. I feel like I don't dig deep enough into the individual formats to feel super comfortable playing control and knowing what I need to stop and what I can let through.
Sure.
So I do sort of default to aggro or tempo uh, more than control, but I play a bit of everything.
Speaking of playing a bit of everything, we just played the Neo 2 Mega Draft, and you got in there. In fact, I've talked to Chris about it. It's been like this crazy circumstance where me and Chris had a game against Sawyer's team that basically like kind of decided if you guys would get in or not. There was this crazy wild game. Um, and then like our tie breaks, everything broke right for you and Zeke to get in there. And then you were the one player who gave Nathan a loss, which allowed for me and Chris to kind of go above the pack. So it was like we pat your back, got you in. You kind of helped us out a little bit in the draft, and you had this 5 color Tommy crazy deck that I just want to talk about for a little bit because it was such a cool a deck. I remember at one point I sighed and said to Chris, like, I can't believe I'm losing to a 5 color deck in the mega draft. And that thing went 3-0. Like that deck was great. Um I want to know, I know you open a 5 color card, but what makes you want to commit to that? And like what made it come together?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I need to give a lot of credit to my partner Z. Um, it was his idea to kind of in week two hold on to a game or two, and then switch decks for week three so that our stronger deck could play more games than the weaker deck.
Yep.
And that plus some really tight tiebreakers that went our way,
Oh,
thanks,
crazy.
in no small part to your team, uh, got us into the draft. And then as we were, discussing what we could play in the draft and did a couple practice drafts, Zeke pointed out that um, that because DMU is in there towards the end, and there's a few other packs that have dual lands with types on them,
Mm-hmm.
at least call time. Apart from that, um, there's a pretty decent 5 color domain deck in that Mega Draft format. And so, having that in my mind, and he also mentioned it as we were drafting it, and I opened the Kami War as my first rare. It's like, well, I didn't 100% commit to it right away, but it's like, well, if green 5 color fixing is open, I can do like a 5 color green thing here, and it was open and it worked.
It was really a sight to behold. You even had what, Ren and I don't know what number 7, 6, 8. You had one of
Ren
the
and
Rens,
Realm Breaker,
Ren and
yeah,
Realm Breaker, that made all your lands tap for any color too. So you had like
yeah,
crazy fixing.
yeah. I had quite a few good opens for that, and I didn't really have the top end I would have liked. I think Chris took a lot of those. Like I would have loved that Dream Trawler,
Oh yeah.
but I can't complain when everything else falls together. And at a certain point, just playing bigger cards earlier gets the job done.
It was a really cool deck, and I was super like into it and impressed that you were able to make it work. So I just got to give it a little bit of a shout out here while I can. But let's talk about Lord of the Rings League. You've been doing very well. I haven't checked the standings recently, but you were 8-2 last week, I believe.
Yep, I was at 8-2 last week. Since then, I've played 3 of my games for the current week, which is you have to play a different color pair every match.
Yes.
And I've gone 1-2 this week. It's been a little bit tough just because, only having 2 punishment packs, my pool's a little bit shallow, and I've really only had one really great color pair, which is the red white. Because I was leaning pretty heavily on Shadowfax, which is a dual color card.
That card's great.
Yeah, which I feel like if we just had a standard 60 card play whatever you want league, I would feel really confident about the rest of it. But I really like the variety that these plane chase style leagues, the plane chase one and then this one where every week there's a different restriction or mechanic going on, and it's a lot of fun.
I think they do a great job with it. I was actually talking to Chris and Adam yesterday, but how like this set's like it's not the greatest, but it's not the worst set. It's just kind of I don't know. I think it's just kind of it's boring, maybe. I don't know. But the fact that we now get to switch it up every week and have all these different challenges, so it's not just tons of black red decks and like Mardu decks playing against each other. Like I had to play green this week. It was crazy, and I thought it actually wasn't that bad. Like it was it's fun how they make you think. And I've been looking at next week, and I think next week's really interesting, the odds and evens one. I don't know how people are approaching it, but I'm having issues, Steve. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I haven't looked that far ahead because I still have to figure out what the heck is my 4th deck for this week going to be, and I might stop at 4, probably will. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how this week being forced to play all the different colors, and next week the odds and evens, get people to think outside the box a bit and maybe discover that there is more than black red in the world. So
I think black red's actually like not doing good this week. Adam keeps posting stats about it where he's like black red's like 2-10 or something.
Yeah, and some of that might just be, the people with bad pools are going to still play their best color, which is going to be black red, and then the people with deeper pools are going to have multiple viable combinations. So I wouldn't read too much into black red specifically not doing well, but yeah, I think it's been really great for the variety.
Did you have a strategy coming into the color pair week where you're like, I'm going to start with my best deck and then kind of go to what I think is my second, third, and go down the line? Or
that's more or less what I plan to do. Just start with the best one and go from there. I think I've heard some people saying that they were going to go like 4th or 5th on up to best, and just I can see both being good. So I just went with best to worst because I figured, if I do end up losing, then hey, I'll get a backpack for my worst deck.
Yep.
If I end up winning, then winning is always good. So I didn't put too much thought into that, but I don't think there's really a wrong way to do it.
No, I also saw people on Cody's super secret server saying like, oh, play real late in the week, so people are playing all their bad decks at that point. But I don't think it really worked. Like you can't choose what deck people are playing, so like you could play
not
5 of.
I mean, unless you like specifically seek out people who have already played what you believe is their best colors and challenge them individually, you don't really have that much control over it.
No,
I've still been doing the matchmaking bot and not even like posting, hey, looking for somebody on their first, second, third match of the week.
I actually haven't seen that at all this week.
I was expecting a bit more strategic matchmaking going on.
I was too. I was thinking people like, hey, my bad deck versus your bad deck, something like that. People trying to maybe even out their own chances, but no, haven't seen it yet. I'm actually going to give a quick editor's note here. I've never done this before. This is kind of cool. I ended up seeing a ton of that this week. So it definitely happened, and it happened a lot. So we just recorded before it started happening. Back to the interview. I did the same strategy. Started with my best deck, played my worst, went 1-4. Bad week for me. My pool's not good, Steve. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say. And I'm having issues figuring out this format. And since you have been doing so well, I'd like to know what your thoughts on the Lord of the Rings format are.
I don't think I have any particular insights there. I've only done a few drafts outside of League. I've mostly just been playing my League matches. But, people have been saying that Mardu colors are the best. It certainly feels like that in my pool. And, uh, green is not so good. But I think I'm mostly just parroting other people here, but I think that once we get people like 7 or 8 packs in, then the depth of green cards is going to come out, and there's going to be some interesting decks there. And other than that, like within the league, just think carefully about which week you want to only play 4 matches and which week you want to play 6 matches, because it's going to vary depending on what you have. And if you have one really strong color, then maybe, if you have 2 really strong colors, then maybe you want to play out all of your matches that you can this week 3. I don't know, if you have a whole bunch of 2 drops and 4 drops, then maybe you're going to go ham on week 4.
I think that is such a strong choice that you have to make. Because Raphael was talking about it actually today, where he's like, hey, I think I'm going to underplay this week. And I was like, you can do it if you are okay with your odd and even deck next week. Because I'm looking at this deck. I have 2 decks. These are my choices. An odd deck that gets basically all of the removal, or an even deck that has all my good creatures and like strong uncommon cards, or play some kind of weird 3-color deck with like bad fixing. And none of it really sounds great.
Yeah, I was looking at, like I said, I haven't done a lot with my pool for that yet, but I was definitely thinking, a lot of the great removal is on 3 or 1 mana for Fear Fire Foes.
Yep.
And then, so if you have other great stuff on odd, then I feel like you're doing really good. If all of the other stuff's on even, or, if you have different removal suite, then yeah, you could end up in that situation. I think a lot of people are going to be running really low powered decks the next week, so I'm not going to stress too much about what my pool in particular looks like, because I'm sure most of the field is going to be in a similar spot.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. Everyone's going to be kind of screwed next week, so don't worry too much about it. Well, as always, I asked the league for some questions, and we got a ton. We're going to go through as many as we can. I asked for some rules questions. I got so many, I don't know what to do. I chose a couple, and if we have time, maybe we will take a look at the other ones. But our first question comes from John B. Because you're kind of the guy you always give us the complicated rules questions when I have people on, and I love it. I love it so much, Steve. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So please, keep doing it. How did you get so into the rules and stuff? Are you like a judge? Were you a judge? Or you just like riddles and like mind problems?
I'm just a puzzle guy. And back when I first got into the game, like when I was maybe a year into it, I found out that there was something called a rules advisor, which is like, a step before becoming a judge. I never went and took the judge test, but I took the rules advisor test, which is basically the judge test minus all the parts about running a tournament. So it's all about the comprehensive rules. And so, I got that. I lost it, but I had this little card that said official rules advisor, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, I just, I do programming as my job, and I like puzzles and figuring out complicated systems and things, and Magic has plenty of that.
Yeah, it does, and I know exactly what you're saying, and I appreciate what you do for us with these questions, and I think we tried to rival some of yours. We'll see if we get there. But John B would like to know, What is the most or one of the most complicated rules questions that you know of?
Okay, so this isn't exactly a rules question, but for just complicated rules things that I know of,
Sure.
mentioning I'm a programmer. Somebody a few years back ago built a working computer in a Magic game state, which means like you can set it up to do kind of an arbitrary computation, answer any question that a computer program could, obviously without talking to the internet or anything like that.
Sure.
But the reason why that's interesting is it means that a Magic the Gathering game can be set up so that the only way to know who's going to win from a particular point where neither player has any more choices left in the game is to go through each and every step of resolving it. You can't just look ahead and say, okay, we're in a loop now, we're going to draw, or okay, now this person is going to win. So you get in this state where the only way to know what is going to be the outcome of the game is to go through each and every step. And it might be that it's going to go on forever and it's a draw, but you can't actually prove that. So it would be really awkward if somebody brought that deck to a tournament and set that up. Because I don't know what the judges would do, because they can't show that, okay, this is a never ending loop. They can't show that, okay, 5 million iterations down the line, player one's going to win. You just kind of have to go through it and probably just, they'd probably just call it a draw, but it's impossible to demonstrate that without going through the motions.
I've seen this deck. There's a YouTube video of like how it works, and it's like how it is a computer that can answer like math questions and do all this stuff. It's really cool. If people haven't seen it before, you should take a look at what Steve's talking about, because it's super interesting, and it works. It's like they get a board state where like everything is like a number and it means a thing and it does a thing, and it's very cool. It's too complicated for me. It's very complicated. Philip M would like to know, what's your favorite keyword ability?
Okay, yeah. I thought about this for a bit, and I was thinking, well, Ward's a new addition. It's kind of interesting, or I like playing with prowess. But then I remembered that back when I started, there was a keyword ability that doesn't exist anymore, and it's called Substance. Have you heard of Substance?
I don't know Substance, no.
So Substance is a keyword ability. It's a static ability with no rules text. That's all it is. A card has substance, or a permanent has substance.
Okay.
And the reason why this used to exist is there's a few older cards from like Mirage Block that are auras, and you have the option to cast them at instant speed. But if you do, you have to sacrifice them at the end of the turn. And so you have, Armor of Thorns gives +2/+2. Sure. You can either give a permanent +2/+2, or you can cast it as a combat trick. Now, at the time, stuff that sacrificed or had a trigger at the end of the turn happened after damage was removed. At the end of the turn, you remove damage from all damaged creatures. But then shortly after that, they changed the rules so that those triggers happened before damage was removed. And now all of a sudden you have given something 2 extra toughness. You sacrifice the enchantment. It has it's a 2/2 with 3 damage on it, and it dies.
Yeah.
Several years later, they decide to release Mirage Block on Magic Online, and they realize we have these cards that are totally useless because they don't do what it looks like they do.
Yeah.
And you're going to end up with a lot of dead creatures. So they rewrote the rules, or they didn't rewrite the rules, but they errated the cards so that they gave substance to whatever they enchant if you cast them at instant speed. And that way, they keep substance until end of turn, but they're so instead of being sacrificed at the end of the turn, which happens before until end of turn stuff and damage wears off, the trigger to sacrifice it says when the creature loses substance, sacrifice this enchantment. and so then it loses substance at the same time that damage is removed, and so it works like it used to.
Oh, so
but
it's like weird.
Yeah, so it's this weird hack to have a trigger happen after damage is removed for the turn, without actually having to, say what it says now. Which, what if you look up those cards Oracle text now? It says at the beginning of the cleanup step, sacrifice this enchantment. I guess they didn't want to mention the cleanup steps explicitly in the rules, or maybe at the time the rules didn't have a cleanup step. I don't remember exactly, but
so is that a magic?
They like added this ability just so that it could be removed later, so that it could trigger sacrificing the enchantment.
But they added that in Magic, in Magic Online exclusively? Is this like a Magic Online exclusive?
So this existed in the comprehensive rules for the paper game since from 2005 to 2009, I think it was.
That is so complicated.
But they never printed a card with substance on it. So the only place it exists now is in back copies of the old comprehensive rules.
So weird. I had no idea. What a weird mechanic. Oh, cool. That's a cool fact. What a fun fact from Steve. Miranda would like to know, what's been your favorite league that you've participated? Because you've been in a bunch. You just had a great run in partners. You've done very well in multiple leagues. You were a family Don in one of the leagues. So what's been your favorite?
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed the partner leagues for the social aspect and from learning from your partner and all that. That's been great. Probably my individual favorite league, and this is colored by the fact that I think this was my best main tournament run, was my second league, which was Chaos League 2.
Oh, what a good one.
I like the randomness, the chaos sets and things. So that was a lot of fun. I also had a really nice, you mentioned that it seems like I like aggro. I had a really nice aggressive red-white deck in that one.
Mm-hmm.
With a few of, off keyword heroic cards in it that, buffed the whole team when I target them with a combat trick.
Oh yeah.
And it just came together really well, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's cool. Like I love the Chaos Leagues. Chaos Magic is probably my favorite way to play. It's just so fun to find the little synergies like that and make it work. I really enjoy it. Johnny would like to know, what is your favorite M11 Titan and why?
Sure. I think I'd have to go with Sun Titan for that one. That is the white one with vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you reanimate a permanent that's cost 3 or less.
Yeah.
If I have that right. And I just like that one because it's fits in a lot of different strategies. I think it's mainly just played in Commander these days, but I think that's for most of them. Maybe it seems a little fringe modern play. I don't know. But, you can just do a lot of interesting, fun things with bringing stuff out of the graveyard.
Oh, yeah. I've seen people crack a fetch, play it, get it back. You do Secure Triber, Elder, crack it for land, get it back. Lots of cool stuff. All right, we're going to start getting into the fun rules questions we got from everybody. So thanks to everyone that sent in one of these. Our first one is going to come from Bob. I hope you understand this because I don't. Which is, how many times do you need to cycle through the 4 Horsemen deck in order to win? Or can you explain the 4 Horsemen combo and how you feel about it? And I don't know how or what the combo is. So if you just want to explain it, that's fine too.
Sure. So 4 Horsemen is a legacy deck that has been around for a while and causes problems in tournaments. And I'll explain what it does and why it's a problem.
Okay.
So it's a 2-card combo with Mesmeric Orb, which is whenever a permanent untaps, its controller middles a card.
Yep.
And Basalt Monolith, which is a mana rock that taps for 3 mana and you can pay 3 mana to untap it.
Okay.
So with those 2 cards, you can mill yourself at will.
Okay.
And then the way it actually wins the game is you tap and untap Basalt Monolith, mill yourself, and get Narcomoebas out of your library onto the battlefield. Because Narcomoeba, when it goes from the library to the graveyard, it comes back to the battlefield.
Sure.
And then you use that. You get 3 Narcomoebas and Shroom the Hegemon and Dread Return in your graveyard. Dread Return lets you sacrifice 3 creatures to reanimate a creature.
Okay.
So you sacrifice 3 Narcomoebas, you bring Shroom the Hegemon from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then Shroom the Hegemon, when it enters the battlefield, it brings an artifact from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you bring in Blasting Station. Now, Blasting Station, you can tap and sacrifice a creature to do 1 damage, and then when a creature enters the battlefield, it untaps. So all you need to do now is have 20 creatures enter the battlefield, and you win the game.
Okay.
Now,
sounds easy.
Yeah. So the way you do that is you keep milling yourself, and you get that 4th Narcomoeba. You tap, sacrifice it, deal 1 damage. But then you only have 4 Narcomoebas in your deck. Those are the 4 horsemen in the deck's name, by the way.
Okay, cool.
So you only have 4 Narcomoebas in your deck, but you need to do 20 damage. So you have Emrakul the Eon's Torn, 1 copy of it in your deck. When that goes to the graveyard, it shuffles your graveyard back into your library.
Oh my god.
And so you can, you reload with that, and you can get your 4 Narcomoebas back, do 4 more damage, etc. The problem with the deck is you have this Emrakul the Eon's Torn that keeps reshuffling your graveyard into your library, and you need this complicated setup state of 3 Narcomoebas on the battlefield, Shroom the Hegemon in your graveyard, Blasting Station in your graveyard, Dread Return in your graveyard, and you need an empty stack because Dread Return is a sorcery. So you need to have Emrakul below all of those cards in your library. And if it's not, it just reshuffles your graveyard into your library. You just try again. So you can keep trying this as many times as you want, except in the Magic rules, I think this is actually in the tournament rules, it says if you have a repeating game state, the player who's the active player has to decide how many times they want that game state to repeat, and then what the outcome is going to be of that repetition, and then you can shortcut through it. But if you can't do that, which you can't here because it's non-deterministic, it depends on the order of your library, then you have to make a different decision. So if you're playing this in a tournament, you can kind of only go through your whole library once, and then you have to move to the next step. So you can do it like once on your upkeep, once on your draw step, once on your main phase, once at beginning of combat, etc.
Oh my god.
Until you have that initial setup done with Shroom and the Blasting Station on the battlefield. But if you can't do that, then you have to do this really slow, complicated thing involving milling yourself repeatedly and shuffling your library, and then just go on to the same next step, and it seems a lot like just slow play.
Yeah.
So it causes a lot of headaches for judges if somebody actually brings that to a tournament, and you have to be really careful not to get warnings or other penalties when you're carrying it out.
Yeah, it sounds sounds like a weird, I like a good combo deck. That's a weird combo deck.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was created just for the rules headaches.
Oh gosh. How do you feel about that deck? Do you like it, or do you is it too weird for you?
I think it's just fun that something like that exists. I've never played it myself, but it seems like a good time, and it seems like the kind of thing that you maybe only play once and then shelve it. But yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I like that it exists.
I agree. Our last question comes from Jaden. They ask, and this is I don't know the answer, so I hope you do. If I have a Selvala Explorer returned on the field and search my library, can I reveal Pan Glacial Worm and attempt to cast it with Selvala, drawing the top card, which I know, and then not have enough mana to actually cast it, leaving it in my library? If not, what's the fix if I have to do this at a competitive event?
So I don't know the exact answer for a competitive tournament because I'm not really up to date on my tournament rules.
Sure.
But I'll explain the question a bit. Panglacial Worm is a card that has a very unique mechanic to it. It says, while you are searching your library, you can cast Panglacial Worm from your library. So that means, you crack a fetch land or do anything that lets you search your library. If you have I think it's 7 mana to cast Panglacial Worm, you can go ahead and do that. Selvala Explorer Returned is an interesting twist to this because it's a card that does 2 unique things. One, as a mana ability that adds a variable and unknown amount of mana to your mana pool. So you can activate it while trying to cast Panglacial Worm, but it might turn out that it doesn't produce enough mana, and then you have to rewind casting the spell and just not cast it. And that's part of the rules. It says, if at any point during the process of casting a spell, it becomes illegal or you can't do it, you just rewind. But the other part of what Selvala does is it reveals the top card of everybody's library and has them draw that card. So that means that as you're doing this rewind because you don't have enough mana, you have now gained the information of what the top card of your opponent's library is, and everybody's put a card in their hand and then has to undo it. I don't think that last part is too big of a deal for competitive play just because these things happen immediately one after the other. So everybody's just seen the card that's gone into the hand, so it can go back. But you are gaining this information because of this weird quasi-legal play where it seems like it's legal up until the point you've already done it, and then you find out after the fact that it was illegal. Because Selvala adds, of those cards revealed off of everybody's library, it adds a green mana for every non-land that you reveal. So you don't know what's on top of your opponent's library. You don't know if they have a non-land or not. So you don't know if you can cast the worm until you activate the mana ability in the middle of casting the worm. And then you find out, I can't actually do it. So we have to rewind the whole casting the spell. So, I if I had to guess, because all of the individual actions are easily reversible because you know what card it is, you do gain the knowledge of what's on top of your opponent's deck. But if I had to guess, I don't think there would be any penalty issued for this, and you would just have to rewind it, and you would probably get a talking to from the judge. Don't do that. It's a headache.
I don't know if it's right, but we're going to get the answer soon. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Steve. This Zoom's going to kick us out any second, but before it does, I want to thank you for coming on and wish you a good this week and rest of the league.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And like I said, good luck out there. And I love the 5-color deck. So cool. And keep up the weird questions. Awesome. I love talking to Steve. Steve, super nice, super cool. I got to see what Steve looked like, by the way. If you don't know what Steve looks like, too bad. I'm the only person that does. And while I was asking for a lot of questions for Steve, a lot of riddles, rules questions, I did get one from Damien. That is just so long, and I wanted to ask it to Steve, but it would have taken the whole interview probably to talk through it and figure it out. I'm going to very quickly read through it right now, and if anyone thinks they figured it out, go ahead and post about it or send it to Damien, send it his way, and let's see what happens. True story. One day it was raining, and I am at face-to-face board, and Max says, "Sup, nerd, want to do some vintage?" And I'm like, sure. Johnny turns around and, interested in our game, says he will watch after slaying some noob. What happened marked me intellectually in my rule comprehension, and I'd like Steve to explain this situation. Which we didn't. We couldn't do it. It just took too long to read this question. I'm sorry, Damien. But you know I love you. You're wonderful. I am playing a Shardless Sultai deck against Max, who is playing a Punishing Jund list. Damien controls a Sylvan library and has a suspended Ancestral Vision with 1 time counter on it. Damien also has a Life from the Loam, among other cards, including lands in his graveyard, and a Jace the Mind Sculptor as the only card in his hand. Max controls a Chains of Mephistopheles. As Damien's turn begins, Ancestral Vision's suspend trigger resolves, and Ancestral Vision is cast. As the player being affected by 2 replacement effects, Chains and Dredge, Damien chooses which replacement effect applies. It's also important to consider Rule 614.11a. If an effect replaces a draw within a sequence of card draws, all actions required by the replacement are completed, if possible, before resuming the sequence. I'm just going to stop. It's going to take too long. It's going to take me 10 minutes to read this thing. I'm sorry, Damien. It's really cool and it's awesome, but it's just so much. It's too much. Find Damien's story. I would love to continue reading it, but that's not even half of it. That's like the first fourth of it. And it just keeps going. And it's so cool and so wonderful. It's a crazy question, Damien. I just had to acknowledge it because I thought it was so wonderful and you put so much effort into it. But it's just too much, and I'm sorry. I am sorry, Damien. But you're doing great. You're in the top 8, so hey, who cares, man? Who cares? Next week, we got evens and odds. Everyone, watch out for that. Be careful. You don't know what's coming up, and you don't know what's coming next. Next week, we have our Player of the Year qualifier for the Miranda Mega Draft Madness. These are your players who are playing for a Player of the Year spot. Emmett F., Sepulcher, Kevin I., Knie, 1993. Ryan D., The Slickness, Evan C., Peas of Crab, Reed P., Big Effing Snake, Nick S., Najisi, which Chris R., my partner in Neo League, pointed out to me, is probably just NJS the Third, but you will always be Najisi to me, I'm sorry. And Miguel B. Etherus. New player. Would be so cool if they just won that one Player of the Year and then never even joined a league. I don't know if they've been in a league yet, have they? Are they in Lord of the Rings League? Let's take a quick look. Do I see a Miguel? I do not. I hope they win Player of the Year without entering a league. And then Chris York can put in a rule that says you can't be Player of the Year if you don't play in a league. Because that don't make no sense. Player of the Year is coming up in a couple weeks. I'm excited for it. We're going to do we're going to do some crazy shows around that time and try to get a bunch of the players in it on the show. Got to get Cody back on the show to defend his title when we get there. Cody Race is the best player on the server. And when we get there, I hope that we all get to keep a good 7, right? Because Magic's hard, and Lord of the Rings is also hard. This is a, at least for me, this has been a punishing league. I'm, again, 6-9, probably the worst I've done since AFR. Don't see it getting much better. I don't feel like I'm playing poorly. I just don't have great cards, and I'm probably not playing the right deck. But hey, we're trying to get to Brawl Week. That's all that matters. And I hope that shuffler is in your favor, because I don't care if you have a File of Galadriel out. If you're drawing 2 cards a turn and they're both lands, you might as well be drawn 1 card or 0 cards a turn, because that ain't going to be too helpful. I hope everyone had a great Week 3. I hope everyone's excited for Week 4 and beyond. I know I am. I can't wait to see what happens with odds and evens week, what Brawl decks come out to play, and then who has the one rare to rule them all in Week 6. It's a fun thing to watch. It's going to be cool. I hope you're excited. I know that I am. And I'll see everybody here next week. Bye, everybody.